This is an interview
Cool.
with SVN Seeker on Sunday, December 20th, 2020 by Nick Burkell. Now, can you each introduce yourself? Like, tell me your name, how you got your first instrument, and any sort of like music schooling or tutoring you've received for yourself, starting with Nikita.
Yeah, my name is Nikita. I do lead vocals, lead guitar, a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, and a lot of the songwriting for SVN Seeker. As far as first instrument, it's kind of funny. I did trombone when I was a young kid, like doing band through at least up to middle school. And then like towards middle school, towards the end of middle school, I felt like I should play guitar for some reason, or I just wanted to get into it, even though I wanted to play drums when I was really young because they were all shiny and pretty in the window. So I basically started on acoustic guitar, learning with a private tutor for more or less the majority of my education. I did some classes in like towards the end of high school. I did some theory tutoring as well. I did a semester of music at college, but I just hated the program there, so I ixnayed that and just basically kept on with either a mix of private tutoring and teaching myself for the past however many years. And here I am.
I'm Geoff, play rhythm guitar in the band. I started with the music in fourth grade, I think is what it was, with the my town did, started having you like do instruments and stuff. I was a percussionist from fourth grade all the way through high school, did marching band, all that stuff. I was the super dork. Ended up picking up guitar at 15, took lessons, I want to say like 6 months to a year. Buddy of mine at the time, his dad played, so he was teaching me a bit. And then from then it's been basically self-taught. From then just, playing stuff I like, trying to learn songs, use that to improve. And that's basically my like whole thing with music from there. It's kind of, it seems that like stereotypical journey learning.
How did your band SVN Seeker come together?
So with SVN Seeker, I basically left my old band, and I was away from them for about like a year and a half. And it just kind of, a combination of dissatisfaction in what job I basically ended up in, to put it mildly, I guess, personal demons and issues, along with the desire to play music again and finagling with writing songs. I ended up getting in contact with our bass player, Rob, who was playing guitar with me at the time. We just kind of started jamming out for a little bit, a couple months. And after that, we clicked pretty well as far as, being able to sit in a pocket really nicely on rhythm stuff, and both had generally the same kind of influences and vision for the band. And after that, we kind of started to piece together the lineup. Rob was talking to our drummer, Pat, who lived in Massachusetts at the time. We jammed with him for a bit before he ended up moving back to Connecticut, because he was a Connecticut native. And shortly around that time, we were looking for a bass player. It ended up working out that Rob wanted to transition over to bass to try something new. And I had known Geoff since college, since we did college radio and stuff like that.
Yeah, so actually, I think since you were 18, your freshman year, actually.
Well, yeah, that's because Swighton was hanging out at the couches.
Yeah.
And just with a Nevermore hoodie, and I'm like, oh look, a band I know.
Yep.
So we knew we reconnected. I think actually around that same time we went to Goldberger's, some beers, and talked shop for a bit.
Yeah, you tried to actually recruit me originally to play bass. I'm like, I'll think about it. Like, checked out some of the stuff. I'm like, bass is definitely not going to work out for me. So I was like, hey, if you guys need a rhythm guitarist, I had a bass, but I barely played it. It was more so like, hey, if I record, I have stuff to, can lay down bass lines. But it was like, I told him like, hey, if you need a rhythm guitarist, let me know. Bass isn't going to be the right direction for it. And once Rob switched over to bass, he hit me up. It's like, yeah, so you want to come try out? I'm like, sure, just send me the music and hopefully I can learn this.
So yeah, we did a couple tryouts. It worked out okay. Everyone sits in the pocket pretty well. We all get along, and it's been the same way for the past like 2 years now. That was 2018, I think.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nuts to think that it's been 2 years at this point.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Jeez.
So how do you guys typically write a new song?
So for songwriting, at least for this EP, has been mostly me, if not we'd put I'd say 95% me.
Yeah, I would say 95% you.
So with these songs, a couple of them were written a long time ago. Like Pilfered was written a few years back when I was trying to do a different musical project with a friend of mine that went nowhere. And then, Seeking My Own Sound I was playing around with when I was still in my old band, Archaic Decapitator. But then, over time, it just kind of, you mess around with riffs. I just put things together over time. Usually it coincides with my listening patterns, depending on what I'm really into at the time. That'll influence the song I'm working on, or at least influence what'll come out of my hand when I'm playing guitar. And that just kind of worked out that way. I'll set down the guitar parts, or at least like the bulk of the guitar parts. I'll have a general idea of drums, and initially I would try to program drums out in Guitar Pro 7, but that program is not very conducive to that kind of work for someone who doesn't have intimate knowledge of notation of drum patterns on sheet music like myself. So I kind of, for the first couple songs I did that, but I stopped really writing out the drum parts ideas, and just kind of we would flow with it at practice. So I'd send out audio of it, send out the tabs of it to all the members. We kind of start slowly practicing it, working on it. And then the biggest thing that we do when it comes to playing together in the room is kind of figuring out how it sounds. Anyone else has any ideas, I'm very open. It's not like, yeah, so we'll jam out the ideas. Usually at practices, I'll give the guys a couple weeks to play with it, usually mostly for Pat to be able to figure out what he wants to do for drum patterns. And it worked out really well, because 90% of the time, whenever we get together and Pat would start playing drums, it'd generally be like what I had in mind. And I always give him free rein on fills, but most of it's like the rhythm patterns and the stuff that repeats. That's what we kind of, that's the one thing I really wouldn't, not necessarily budge on, but that's kind of where I'd have my quote unquote final say. But I mean, like I said, I take in feedback. I take in what the other guys think, with we should change this part to this, or let me write something for this section, or maybe if we did something like this, and I'd kind of take that into consideration and work on it. And we eventually, either I'd work on it or they would bring in their ideas, and we'd go from there.
What kind of songwriting techniques did you use for this album?
Well, it's funny because of the earlier ones, it definitely shows my earlier influence from when I was younger in terms of writing metal. And after a while, I kind of would just take in I always used to have this issue of putting so many notes, because I'm a primarily guitar player, so I think of the guitar part first and foremost almost always. And what I would have to do is really pay in mind of all the other instruments that are going to be involved. So what are the drums going to do? What is the bass going to do? Give room to breathe. So I'm doing vocals. What am I going to do for these parts? So it takes a lot of usually takes a lot of sitting down, getting it out, re-listening to it over and over. Sometimes I would just kind of press record on either the voice recorder on my phone or in a DAW, and just play out what ideas I had, and eventually kind of piece things together from there. It just kind of I guess that's the best way to put it, really. It's just kind of what come what may, and then I refine it later. And like I said, I always give these guys in progress updates and see what they think. Sometimes they say nice things, sometimes they're like, I don't know about this, right, Geoff?
Yeah, that one. There was we may actually probably your other questions can cover it in another one, but there was one song I was very much we need to change this.
Yeah, there were a couple. I mean, I think there's also a lot of songs that we're working on right now that are still in the process. But yeah, it's usually just kind of me getting the idea to get what kind of sound am I going for, or what do I want to try to go for, and then from there just put my spin on it and get feedback from the dudes.
You ever put anything arpeggios or experimenting with different scales into the songs?
Oh yeah. With a lot of these, it's the classic metal guitarist trap of the harmonic minor scale, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a great easy cheat sheet for 99% of melodic metal. But I'll throw in, I'll definitely try to throw in some other scales going forward, especially this EP I feel is kind of a bit more tame in some aspects, but I definitely like to mess around with stuff like that. I mess around with the Egyptian scale and its modes a lot. I actually have one song that I have one song right now that I used cannibalized riffs from a song I wrote when I was a lot younger, that I'm gonna be hopefully putting on the next release we're gonna be doing down the line, and that's all in the Egyptian scale. I've worked on some Japanese scales myself as well, and some weird stuff like that. The Russian scale too, which has it's weird because it has like a weird I think it's a major and a minor sixth.
Ooh.
So it has a weird characteristic to it, but I for me it like feels like home, you know. So I'll definitely be messing with that too, going forward.
Ooh, yeah. I was gonna say I would love to be able to get like some of the Middle Eastern kind of scales and influence in there. That would be like that's something I just love the sound of. It'd be cool to get that worked into future releases.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Like, how long do you think it'll be before that song you spoke of comes to fruition?
So it's that one's tough because I have a love-hate relationship with the initial version of it. You know, it was one of those like it was kind of like my first foray into songwriting, and I didn't understand how to write songs. So it's literally just a riff salad. It's 4 minutes of just like riff salad of riff after riff after riff after riff with no cohesive like flow. There's no hooks. There's nothing good about it. But the riffs are solid. And what's hard for me right now is to disassociate my like personal feelings towards how that song was back then, and kind of move around the pieces to get to being something good. Hopefully soon. I feel like I'm getting closer to being able to be happy with where it is, but it's going to take a little bit more time. Probably on this upcoming release, not the upcoming release, but the one once we get the means to an end out and really get people invested in that and start building a better, stronger fan base, I'll probably start thinking about the next EP probably EP, and that one's definitely going to be on there. Initially, that one was going to be on Means to an End, but it just ended up not working out quite as well as I wanted it to. Hopefully soon, though, because I've been meaning to put that song out for a while. And now that I have like a band that I can bounce ideas off of and confidently bounce ideas off of, unlike the past, not Archaic Decapitator, but my kid project. I feel that one's going to be coming to fruition sooner rather than later.
You have songs that go back 7 or 8 years, like Pilfered.
Yep.
I guess, can you just tell me how that song has evolved over the years?
So, honestly, with a lot of Pilfered, it was like the main riffs you hear, meaning basically all of it, more or less, is kept in its original state. I didn't really do a whole lot to the riffs. It was more so the arrangement. The harmonies that are in the harmonization parts in there are totally new. The solo's totally new. The clean guitar part was actually Geoff wrote, so that's completely new. That's not even out of my hands. But it used to be, it was a badly written, I think, like 10-minute song when I first wrote it for my old project, and that one, that did not work in the slightest. Listening back to it, it was terrible. It had a clean intro that sounded awful. So it definitely, I cut some things and I rearranged some things to make it what it is now. And the lyrical themes of Pilfered definitely changed since I wrote it 8 years ago.
Yeah, it was just because like the big change it seems in that particular song from like what Nikita brought to us, at least from his just rearrangement, was a acoustic section in it that I ended up writing. It was just kind of one of those things where I felt like it could have been more from what I was playing. Like I learned the song as it is when obviously he brought it to me, and it's like, hey, Lars is one of the ones to learn to try out, but it's like I felt there could have been more there. I think I followed the relatively followed the same chord progression he used. I just kind of zazzed him up a little bit, and I ended up doing like a finger picking for it instead of what was there. I felt like that was kind of my big influence that I brought into things, just like a lot of what I listen to, like Opeth, I'm a big fan of Metallica, like huge Nevermore fan. So it's like bands that use a lot of, clean and acoustic that bring into things and really help, progress the sound, as it were.
The opening track to the album is a short instrumental entitled The Plot. What was it like writing that?
So the plot was kind of like, I felt weird having a 4-track EP, and I wanted to leave something in there. And I was toying with the idea of doing an instrumental, either like clean guitar thing, or like it turned out to be keys, synthesized keys kind of thing. I've been toying with it for a while, and I was kind of messing around with a few things. And I felt that having the plot, which basically more or less follows the chords and melody for the chorus of Pilfered, to tie them together, not only just musically but thematically, I felt that was probably the best way to go. So I more or less just rearranged and maybe not transposed, but like adapted the chords and the melody of the chorus of Pilfered into just like a small little instrumental piece. That one was it was literally just kind of like, I want to have one more track on here, at least something small, maybe not a full song, but just something small to kind of, tie it all together, almost kind of thing, or kick it off in the right way. And it just kind of popped in like that. I think it worked out pretty well. There's a lot of bands will do that. We'll do like a soft instrumental kind of thing like that.
I see. Like, my favorite metal instrumentals of all time are Rigor Mortis's Welcome to Your Funeral and Death Angel's The Ultraviolence. What are some of your favorite instrumentals?
Oh God, I'm gonna need some time to think. Jeff, can you start this one?
Okay, so I have to be, previously, I'm a big Metallica fan, so I have to be that jerk. Orion, just absolutely fantastic. That's same with Call of Cthulhu. I actually wasn't. I don't care much about the one that they did on Injustice, but like those two are big for me when it comes to instrumentals. And as I said, I'm a big Jeff Loomis fan, so like, just I guess technically would it be instrumentals. His solo albums are just like blow me away kind of a thing. So it's those really of those big ones. Like particularly for Jeff Loomis, I'd say probably like the Ultimatum off of his second album, Plains of Oblivion, I want to say that was the name of it, and Miles and Machines. Like the first time I heard that off his first solo album, I was just sat there, I was just dumbfounded. Like the harpsichord, I think it's harpsichord is what he's trying to emulate with the like arpeggios in the beginning, and then just going into the sweep picking of those arpeggios. I was just completely blown away. But like, why do I even bother playing guitar? I'm never going to be that good. So it's like those are the real things that, like, for me, instrumental wise, are just like wow. Kind of going on the two, spectrums there with what people would expect, be like kind of, I guess, in metal, what you'd expect out of instrumentals with what Metallica did too, like, seeing now like all these shred guitarists and everything, kind of where I range with that.
I guess for me, it'd have to be like maybe, probably come down to like 2 or 3. I really liked Drunken Paris from Typo Negative. It's a really short one. I think it's like all of a minute and a half, but it's just something about it. Whether it's like the accordion sound they use or just the way that the chords move, it just gets me like in the feels. And it's a shame because it's like, it's only like maybe a minute and a half, 2-minute track, and I just deeply want it to be just an 8-minute jam session. I just feel like it lends itself really, really well to that. You know what I mean? And the next one that I personally listened to a lot in high school was the title track off of the first Wretched album, The Exodus of Autonomy. Just 9 minutes of really sweet, like, techie melodeath jams with like a really flavorful Spanish influenced interlude or Spanish influenced break in the middle. And it just has a lot of fun. It has some chugs, it has some heavy bits, but it moves nicely. You know what I mean? It flows well. So like, I think those two probably come to mind the fastest. And then like every single shred guitarist ever, all instrumental. So well, except for Ingvi. Ingvi can go to hell. But Cacophony, everything like that. Yeah.
Now, on that note, you've listed video game soundtracks as big influence on your band as well. What are some of your favorite soundtracks in games?
I mean, basically anything Nobuo Uematsu's ever written is my rock right there. That's usually where I immediately go for any influence of like usually towards either song composition or layering of like parts, or even when I'm trying to think of what to do with like the synth parts with the keys and the strings. It's just always right away to Uematsu's work. And then you have your greats like Yasunori Matsuda, Yoko Shimomura, both who did they did Parasite Eve and Kingdom Hearts and Chrono Trigger respectively. You have Motoi Sakuraba, who did a lot of the Star Ocean soundtracks and has a really cool, more contemporary approach to his music. He has a lot more electronic influence and poppier elements than I feel Nobuo does, although he's been doing pretty good job with what he's done lately. And then, you know, you have the classics, you know. Oh God, what's the name of the composer who did? Oh my God, I can't remember. I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the composer who did Zelda. It's gonna bug me to the end of time, and I'm gonna look it up later and be just like absolutely gutted because it was right on the tip of my tongue, but I keep thinking of a completely wrong person. But you know, the Zelda soundtracks have always been fantastic. Anything, yeah, you know, the classics are always the classics. You can't go against them because they're so well written, and it still pisses me off that I can't think of the composer's name.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's not something, but Castlevania soundtracks like lend themselves really well to metal with that like gothic influence.
Yeah.
But even then, just like, God, they slap. They
I would say
absolutely.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there.
no, it's okay. I
I'd
could
say
go on for literally 14
yeah.
years.
Honestly, like the Metroid for me, like the Metroid Prime soundtrack, I actually had to look up who the composer is Kenji Yamamoto. Like I thought, like he did fantastic. Like you know, it's a lot more like ambient stuff a lot of the time with that, but some of the parts and some of the sections are just absolutely phenomenal. And like again, so that'd be cool to like maybe bring in some of that influence into some stuff in a you know, maybe the next EP or the EP after that. First, because we do have some of the you know, synth stuff on a couple of the songs. Obviously, we're probably going to be including that and, you know, future stuff. So it'd be cool to get some of that in there, like, you know, and it's just kind of stereotypical at this point, but like, you know, the Doom 2016 soundtrack, the way God, I'm blanking on the dude's name, but like the way he combined, yes, thank you, Mick Gordon, the way he combined just all the, you know, like, yeah, that kind of like stereotypical gent sound, but like he brought in all that, you know, electronic influence that just really helped set the tone for the game. And just like the music on its own, you can sit there and just like jam out to it, and it's just, you know, phenomenal. So like, you know, just hearing those kinds of things that you see more mainstream games too, like kind of bringing in some maybe something a bit heavier was just cool for me, just because, you know, it's Nikita's naming off all these, you know, games that have like great like composed like more orchestral kind of stuff music wise. So it's nice to see, I guess, something really bring in that, just something a bit more visceral to the game, which obviously with Doom it just kind of fits the you know, the way the game is. But it's, you know, again, cool to have that kind of thing be a bit more, you know, mainstream in a game, I should say.
I have to jump in. It's Koji Kondo for Zelda because I had to look it up. It just got to me so badly. I had to do it.
Okay, in 2020, as an underground musician, how important do you feel like having yourself as well as your band on MetalArchives is?
You know what? I honestly don't think it's that important, really.
Yeah, I would say
in terms of importance, I definitely put up having more accessible social media is way up there. So, you know, Facebook. I mean, Facebook is such a catch-22. I usually would go to that as like a hub kind of thing, but being more importantly, Instagram is really good because that algorithm seems to reach out to new people a lot easier than Facebook and Twitter. I think a lot of bands need to start using Twitter more and really putting up like more personalized content on there. I think those are really more important than MetalArchives and Bandcamp. Of course, you need to have a storefront that's easy to get to. And they do a great job on Bandcamp of you know, giving you all the tools you need to be able to get, you know, run a solid business. I mean, MetalArchives is cool for like I'll go on there and I'll double check on bands, or maybe if I'm looking for similar artists, or sometimes I'll go there to maybe find like Bandcamp links and stuff, but that's just because I've used it so much. But I feel like a lot of people really don't use it or don't know about MetalArchives, and I don't blame them because that site like, while it is nice to have some knowledge, it's very gatekeepy, both in like the way the site is run and the forums, which are just one of the most toxic places I've ever been. And it's just insane. Like, it's cool to have like your stuff and links up there, especially for like a kind of like a resume thing, because you look at drummers like Dirk Verbeuren or or Gene Hoglan, you see this massive wall of links and stuff, and it helps to look up things like that. But I think MetalArchives is one of those places that needs at least a restructuring or a revamping. It's it is a hive of maybe not scum and villainy, but definitely a hive of neckbeardies.
So it's not the Tatooine of the metal world.
It's not that bad because while they do have certain bands with certain affiliations that are very much frowned upon, and there have been a couple of cases where they actually will blatantly label bands as they should be labeled, but at the same time, it's like you're supposed to be in. It's metal archives, not just any alternative music archives. But it's like, how do you not have Between the Buried and Me or Converge on your archives? I get it's metalcore, but you also have bands like Caliban that are straight metalcore on there listed as played metalcore, and it's such a weird picky choosy thing that they'd go through when it comes to allowing bands on there alone, and it just kind of reflects the gatekeeping mentality of or at least perpetrates the gatekeeping mentality of the whole site. I have a friend whose band was denied an entry on there because they seem to be primarily grind, but it's but you have a page for Brutal Truth and Insect Warfare and Nazem and Pig Destroyer and Asuk. It's do we need to go on? What do you mean primarily grind? You have a tab for grind. You have a tab for deathcore and metalcore. So stop being picky choosy kind of thing. If you want to be an archive, be an archive. There's my rant over. Long story short, it's cool, but it's not that important, I think.
It's not something I've even thought about. Honestly, I just kind of forget the place exists. Seeing the list of questions, it was oh yeah, that place. Are we even on there? I actually had to go and look up to see if we're on
Not
there.
yet.
So I saw that. I actually went and looked it up. It was I want to say last time I was on there, good 10 years ago. They haven't even changed the front page of it in 10 years. And it's just you would think too, is something if you want to be this actual archive, you want to be able to just stay up to date, keep things, have a bit more modern interface and look. And it's just do people use this? Honestly, this is my first thought with it when I kind of think about it at this point. It's do they use it? Is it even worth being on there? Are people going to find us on there? Or are we more likely to be found, just through social media? So
it's they haven't changed the site since 2002, and it's come on, guys. You definitely see people on here, but are those people the kinds of people who will commit as a fan to a band and are legitimately fans of bands, or are they just those kinds of people who obsess with data collecting and knowing all of the bands and making sure everything's up to date and stuff like that? I think that's what we're looking at, because I knew a kid who was like that. He was a metal archive, but it's I'm not gonna, we were trying to talk about bands, and every time he mentions the band, it's oh look, here's an obscure demo from 1995, and I go, okay. If this demo was that good, then why is this band not a thing, and why has this not been picked up by people? You know what I mean? It's a cool little resource, but I feel that it's just one of those things where if someone's in a new band, it's one of the least important pages to worry about. I'd put more effort into building a social media presence across the big three, and even TikTok, honestly, while we still have it, and making sure everyone, the Bandcamp's on point, everything's professional on there. MetalArchives is kind of we have a page, check us out, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't even take reviews into account on MetalArchives because some of the people on there are just well, this doesn't line up with what I like, and therefore it gets a 20%. It's all right, but clearly everything else about it is oh look, this album is amazing. I think Slaughter of the Soul has a 65% on there. I'm yeah, don't get me wrong, I love the older At the Gates too, but Slaughter of the Soul isn't a bad record, seeing how it literally shaped melodic death metal going forward.
I wasn't even aware that they had album reviews on there.
Oh yeah, they're almost all some things you find out they have pretty good scores, but I just don't care about album reviews on there, because it's any person who owns a blog can put up an album review, and then when you think about it like that, and you just have to sign up for a quick account on MetalArchives, and people use them as their own music blogs, basically their own page is just their music blog, and it's I don't want to see that, because Jeez Louise, this man literally hates everything.
No.
Sorrow of the Soul has a 71%. How?
You sure?
For now.
What is your favorite ghost story or urban legend about Connecticut?
Ooh, Jeff, do you have any? Because I know of the couple.
Honestly, I had kind of just. It's not something I really follow much. It's never been stuff I've been overly into. Honestly, just kind of, again, seeing the questions, it was just make me curious as to what is going on in Connecticut. It's just the Legend of the Green Lady kind of is what caught my attention. I guess with, the whole thing with it is woman's husband, went in town this early 1800s. Woman's husband went in town to get supplies. There was a snowstorm. He, I guess the story is he stayed in town just to avoid it. She got worried when he didn't come back, ended up going out to search for him, I guess, supposedly, died in the swamp. And she haunts the graveyard in, where is it? I think Burlington, Connecticut. There's a graveyard she supposedly haunts there. And people have said, they've, seen a ghost, of a woman, and, green glow around her or whatever, she'll smile and wave and kind of that's it. It was just kind of interesting with the story with it. I guess I looked into it a little further. I guess there's some satanic stuff that apparently supposedly kind of connected to it and everything too since then. It was just really weird that I found that would be connected with just what seems like such a kind of mundane thing happening, like what you would kind of wouldn't be shocked to see happen in the, early 1800s. So it's just, I found that quite interesting. But again, it's I don't know much about it beyond that. This is just, I'm not super into, the ghost stories and all that. They've never really been something that have caught my attention personally.
I will say Green Lady's definitely haunted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but
my girlfriend had she used to, when she was between jobs, she was helping her friend with his paper route, and they drove by there, and it was it was like a regular morning. It kind of think it rained the night before, but the length of Green Lady Cemetery was just thick fog, and they're like, "Are we gonna crash and die?" Because as soon as they got past the grounds of Green Lady, it was clear as day, and she's like, "Yep, haunted. I'm never going there again." Everybody I've talked to who's been there has been like, "I'm not setting foot anywhere near there. That place is messed up." And it's not just smile and a nod kind of thing. It was not bad things happen. I'm out. Connecticut is weird because there's so many haunted things, and most of them are from the Warrens. Ed and Lorraine Warren, were just their I think it's demonological exploits have influenced so much of pop culture, between Amityville Horror and The Conjuring, and Annabelle is there. And I think Lorraine passed a couple of years ago, I want to say, or maybe even a year ago now. So now we don't know what's going to happen. Maybe this is all the 2020s because Annabelle doesn't have a Warren around to keep her in check. But there's that, like you mentioned, the Green Lady. There's Dudleytown, which is it's an abandoned town in Connecticut, and the rumor is there have been a lot of mysterious occult related deaths in Dudleytown. So it's actually private property. You can get arrested for trespassing there. And me and my dumb high school friends wanted to do a camping trip back in 2011 to be oh yeah, let's do a camping trip in Dudleytown and get possessed by demons. Things like that. The Connecticut ones are cool, but like I said, they almost all relate back to Ed and Lorraine Warren and the things that they've gone through. For me, usually when I think of cool supernatural things or folk legends, it's usually it goes from Russia. I know more about the Russian kind of stuff. Everyone knows Baba Yaga. Or as they like to say, Baba Yaga, which annoys the hell out of me. But, it's oh, she's just an evil witch. I'm yeah, she's a sometimes evil witch who lives in a hut that walks on chicken legs through the fucking woods and may or may not help you. It's maybe she'll help you out for a price. Maybe she'll deep fry your child. You never know. And it's just so, because it's no, legit. And it's you don't know if, you don't know either way. It's not oh, well, witches are bad, or Hansel and Gretel. I'm oh, she'll cook you. But it's no, she legitimately could help. Or she could be deep fried babies. Yes, please. Or you get things there's the tale of Ivan Susanyan in Russia, which actually my mom just recently told me, funnily enough, which was basically a martyr, a national hero who there was a team of Polish assassins who came to kill off, I think Tsar Nicholas the First or Second, one of the two. And the legend goes that he basically was like, "Oh, okay. Oh, sorry, no, Tsar Michael, my mistake. I had to double check my notes." And so instead of being like, "Oh yeah, cool, I'll tell you where it is," he's like, "Well, I can't let the king die," so he just brings them into the woods, kind of like, kind of almost like Scorched Earth style, where you go in too far until you have to retreat. Just brings them into the woods, and nobody ever returned. Just like, yep, save the king by leading a bunch of Polish assassins into the woods, and nobody knows what happened. Yeah, well, or just each other. And then there's the tale of Rasputin, who like, oh, I healed the hemophilia of the king's son, and they tried to assassinate him like 5 times before they succeeded. Died of hypothermia when he was shot, stabbed, poisoned, and drowned. And I believe there's one more other way they tried to kill him, and he survived every single one, except for hypothermia. And they also, after he passed, they saved his member in a jar, reported to be between 11 and 13 inches. That's why that old Boney M song, "Russia's Greatest Love Machine," boy howdy, you got that right. Those are just a couple of the favorites. I did a bit of dabbling into like Russian paganism and like Russian folk stories like a few years ago, and I got deep into that. So I forgot some of those stories, but fun fact: Beauty and the Beast, that basic story is a Russian folktale from like thousands of years ago. Exact same plot line with almost the exact same outcomes.
Now, I guess, what is your most cherished album in your music collection?
Jeff, I have to think again.
Oh God, for my vinyl collection, it's actually I am pretty sure I'm actually gonna open my chest with them here. I have a copy of Metallica's Garage Days Revisited. Like I'm pretty sure it's an original press. I could be wrong on that, but it's just one of those things I saw at a record store. I'm like, wow, I need to have this. Again, just being the Metallica nerd. But it was just like, it's one of those things, just like the great thing for me with records is, if you can get the old ones, you're like actually hearing the music as it was, how it was recorded. It's not like we're, hearing an MP3 now where it's all digital, but it's like, this is the actual music from, 1980, this is that actual album. You're hearing music from literally, this point, it would be 30, 40 years ago. If it was, the early 80s, almost 40 years ago. So it's like, that it's just, to me, it's cool. That's why I loved picking that up. But it's just, again, just being a huge Nevermore fan, like I have their entire discography on CD. That was huge for me to be able to just get all of those. I have most of them on vinyl. There are a few more I need to pick up, but it's like, there's just kind of those little things like that, having those kind of special things for my favorite bands. Either of them was just cool for me. Just like, that's what I love. I have like another there's another Metallica one I did find where it's a bootleg from one of their shows in 86, like back when Cliff was in the band. It was like I had to look it up because I'm like, what the hell is this? And it was like, yeah, this is a bootleg from that show. It's never an official release by the band. I was like, I need to have this just because, okay, there's an actual these bootlegs out here. I went and grabbed it, I think, for like $100 that it was or whatever. When I got it, it was just like, that was cool just to be able to find that bootleg from an actual show from 86 was like spectacular.
Was it the last show in Sweden?
I don't know. It's Molten Rock is the name of it. It's Chicago. It's I'm looking at it right now. It's from a Chicago show, April 20th, 86. It's really cool. It's cool to listen to too, because it's like you can tell. It's like, yeah, this is like definitely like somebody like somehow got something in there to record this for this show. And it's like it's the sound quality isn't spectacular, but still just like somebody actually got some sort of recording equipment in, was able to go get the actual sound from the show and actually get it pressed and released. Was just, that's cool. So it's like, for me, like just like, that's awesome that I have this.
I didn't know you had that. That's legit as hell.
Yeah, I can actually send you a picture after. But yeah, it was like, too, because the funny thing is, if you look at the actual vinyl itself, I was like, did I get ripped when I picked it up? Because I look at the actual vinyl itself, it's like the Wizard's Quest is like the name on the like printed along the right around the little spot where the peg goes on the record player. So I'm like, did I get gypped on this? I put it in. I'm like, no, this is Metallica. Like, this is legit fucking, bootleg that somebody tried to go and, was actually selling. Holy shit, that was awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. For me, I mean, I've been buying a lot of CDs more or less lately, but I've been doing it kind of a lot for the past few years. I've got, all of Strapping Young Lad on CD, except for like a couple of rare EPs and stuff like that. Like, I'm still trying to find C:**:**, because that has like the extended version of Love that I grew up on from LimeWire. I've got all that. I have the 3 main Bungle CDs, and for the self-titled, I have 2 copies where the first song is titled Travolta. One was a promo copy because it had the barcode punched out. One was a retail release, and then I have the later release that has quote unquote. I've got just about everything Typo Negative on CD, but I do have Slow, Deep, and Hard on the first CD print when it was Road Racer Records, so I'm proud of that one. But I think the ones that really matter to me, like mean the most to me, would probably be my parents' old DDT CDs. Their DDT was a really well-known Russian band, well-renowned Russian band from like the 70s that's still going. I saw them last year, and it's like the lineup's completely different except for the lead songwriter, but he's like a staple of my childhood, and they still have their CDs from when they were reprinted back in the 90s when they had them in Russia. And it's just like, he's like, they're one of the biggest, probably Russian, like most renowned, most well-loved Russian bands out there ever. And like, just to have those and be able to hear all their, because they were outlawed by the government. They were very, very critical of the Communist Party. And back then, when they were active, like the 70s, 80s, you band artists and musicians and bands had to be like state sanctioned. You couldn't, you underground musicians end up in exile or dead all the time. They managed to make a pretty prolific career out of it. They were very, very, sneaky. I mean, they're just one of many back then that either were were able to survive, or after a while, towards the 80s when things started to get a bit more lax, managed to, at least stay together and eventually kind of be given like an okay pass. But they're, having those CDs and being able to listen to that stuff, that kind of brought us all together. And hearing DDT and their singer Yuri Shevchuk's music's like just amazing. A lot of it, generally, like my mindset towards music was inspired by him, along with the overall, because they combined so many different sounds. They had keys, they had synths, they had guitars, they had flutes, they had a brass section in some songs. Songs would be like straight blues hits, and other ones, like especially from the 90s, had a bit more like of a post-rock kind of feel to them. And then you have some songs that are just like straight, just like fun party bangers that you can sing along to, and then you'll get straight up like punk songs. It's they run the gambit, but every time they do it, it just works out super well. I don't know. It's hard to put stick a finger on it or pick one exactly, but I'd say those CDs are probably like the most personal, most important ones to me personally, I guess you'd say.
Thanks a lot. Would you like to go back to any questions?
I mean, let me double check. I thought I ran the gambit pretty good. Oh, I do want to quickly shout out though about the EP. I always forget this. I got to talk about working with Dave Kaminski.
Yeah.
At Studio Wormwood, because it is probably the most important learning experience for the band. I think I can speak on everyone's behalf when I say that was the single most important learning experience for us as a band, because Dave was like the most professional dude ever, and he was like the 5th member of the band. Like the Kaminski effect can't be understated. the dude locked in on us, and we were all on the same wavelength and like a hive mind the entire time. Because I had worked with him, I've known him for a while. I never got to record with him when I was with Archaic, unfortunately. I was actually supposed to before I left, but you know, the dude has such a wealth of knowledge of bands and styles and different approaches to things, to how to record music, from everything from, you know, how you play it to where you play it to, like, you know, getting the best performance out of you no matter what you could do. And it's not like a lot of your small studio engineers or engineers who work with small bands where you cut a take and they go, so how was it? Like, what kind of question is that to ask someone who just recorded a take? You know what I mean? Like, you don't know until, you know, you need to have someone who's a producer sitting there and be like, you could do that better. And that man, like, the best way, you know, pushed every single one of us to the absolute limit to get the best possible performance out of it. And it's like I said, it was the single most more important experience, at least for me personally, and it was just one of the best experiences for all of us, because it's you really sit down and listen to yourself play, and you get that feedback from someone who's not directly, it's like he's a friend, but when it comes to the studio, it's all business.
Yep.
So if he tells you could do that better, or you need to tighten this up, or, you know, he'll for example, for Seeking My Own Son, our single, when it comes to it's like a certain way of playing the verse riff, he basically like tweaks. He advised us to tweak our playing slightly, to get a bit of a more even and tighter sound. And it's something that I, on my own, never would have thought of. And I feel that if we were with almost any other engineer, they would not have said anything. They'd have been like, how does that sound to you? And to our ear, it's like, it sounds like practice. It sounds great. And it would just come out so much worse.
Yeah, the amount of times, like, when we were when we were recording Seeking My Own Son, like, I'm not picking it up as much when I'm playing, because it's just, again, it's apparently something I'd been doing the entire time. Like, there was just my picking, you know, the way I was hitting it was just, I was hitting an open string, you know, not muting it properly, and I never really noticed. And just the amount of times he stopped, was like, yeah, no, that string's ringing out, like, just cut it, we're starting over. Like, it's just like, wow, it's really just like, okay, I need to go back. Like, I've since, just from that experience, gone back and readjusted, like, try to adjust my picking. Like, okay, I'm, you know, Nikita likes to go and you know, always tell me I'm like super tense when I play, but it's like, part of that is because I'm just trying to, you know, how I've adjusted my picking, I'm trying to be more cognizant about how I'm, you know, muting these strings and making sure I'm avoiding, you know, not hitting them while actually playing, just to help keep things clean. It was just like his, you know, just that little thing of just like, no, you're hitting this note, like, you got to be more aware of that. Like, we're just going to start over. We're going to get this right. Like, really, like, force me to reevaluate just my own playing and like, okay, how do I change this? How do I go and, you know, use this to be a better guitarist moving forward?
It's so many small things that you wouldn't have thought of as a player, especially like with it, considering if you would practice at home. And even if you do record yourself, sometimes you think it sounds okay, sometimes you think it doesn't. In the rehearsal room, you know, there's only so much of each other we can hear, and those small details that get lost in a live setting.
Oh yeah.
But have a guy who not only can pick up on that and advise on that, but also, you know, he gave really great insight into even lyric writing, you know, vocal performance, how to get the drums to do certain things, how, you know, to, you know, certain ideas of composition and layering of like different kind of synths and stuff. It just, or like different even types of synths or sounds to fit in a certain context. It's something that really can't be understated. It was, like I said, I'll say it 100,000 more times. It was the most amazing and important experience, I think, in all of our lives. It was just amazing.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna say he was a jerk while recording, but it's like his attitude with it. He's really not afraid to be that asshole and be like, no, you're doing this wrong. Like, fix this. Like, he really was not afraid to, you know, really push back on that feedback and really, you know, make sure like he was heard and, you know, we really understood what was going on. You know, again, that's not saying he was an asshole while doing it, but he's like not afraid to have that kind of mentality going into it from the, you know, at least I get from him from just the experience. And it's just, that's fantastic. You know, it's not like maybe I since he's the only one I've worked with, I don't know how other maybe guys who'd work with smaller underground bands and everything would go and handle things, but it's just there's no stroking an ego or anything. It's just like he's going to push back when he feels he needs to, and it does get us the best performance. So that was awesome.
Dude is stern but fair, and he pushes you to the limit, and we're all the better for it.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. This was an interview with Sun Seeker on Sunday, December 20th, 2020 by Nick Purcell.